Recording has started. So yesterday we started JavaScript and we looked at how to declare a variable. Let's please, everybody, please kindly mute your mic. So we looked at how to declare a variable in JS. Okay. So we looked at how to declare a variable in JavaScript yesterday, and we stopped at naming convention. That was what we were about starting before we ended yesterday's class. So who can remind us the rules that guide variable declaration? I mentioned yesterday that there are some rules that guide variable declaration. Plus, please, who can remind us of those rules? Hello? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, please, good evening. Please, who can remind me of those rules I gave us yesterday? The rules that guide variable declaration. Okay, for the sake of our time, uh, I explained that a variable. Good evening, sir. So I explained that a variable must not start with a number. It must not have special characters except dollar and underscore. It must not have spaces in between, and it must not be a reserved word. So let's continue from there. So today we're going to look at naming conventions. We talked about the need for naming conventions yesterday when we did this. I explained to us that it's a good practice that your variable name explains the value it is holding. Your variable name should explain the value the variable is holding. And I said, since a variable name cannot have space, you are not allowed to use white spaces like this as part of your variable name, then you can write them all together like this. But I said, writing them together like this creates a new problem. And the problem is that sometimes when you join words together, they become difficult to read. In fact, it may even lose its meaning. Or when other people view your code, they may not even understand this. They may not understand this. So that leads us to naming convention. Let's look at some of the naming conventions in JavaScript that you can use in JavaScript. Now, before we proceed, let me first discuss the meaning of conventions. When we talk about conventions in programming, or let me limit it to the word of JavaScript, they are norms in the community. They are norms. And these norms, when you don't follow them, it doesn't mean that your code will not work. It doesn't mean that it's not going to run. It will run. But just that it's good for that you keep to the norms of the community. I come again. When you don't follow these norms, yes, it doesn't mean your code will not run. It will still run. But it's good because it makes it easier for other developers to relate with you, since that's the standard of the community. That's the norm here. So let's look at some of the naming conventions here. We're going to start with Pascal casing. Then we have the snake casing. And we have the camel casing. So we have the Pascal casing, we have the snake casing, we have the camel casing. So let's pick them one. The other casing system, anyway. But let's discuss this story. Pascal casing. When you're using Pascal casing, you start all of the words in that variable name. You start all the words with uppercase. All words start with uppercase. What does that mean? So let's assume I want to rename this now using Pascal casing. Student is a word. It's going to start with capital letter. In is another word, it starts with capital letter. Class is another word, it starts with capital letter. So I can now remove this space now. So this is Pascal casing. If you want to write this in Pascal casing, so this is Pascal casing. That is, you start each word in your variable name with an upper case. So that makes it for other developer to know that, oh, once they see a word in uppercase, they know that's the beginning of a new word. It's now easier to read. It's easier to read. Let's look at the snake casing. In snake casing, remember I said you are allowed to use underscore and dollars. So in snake casing, you separate the words with underscore. Since you're allowed to use underscore, then you separate the words using underscore. This is snake casing. Then the third one, which is camel casing. Camel casing is similar to Pascal casing. The only difference between them is that in camel casing, the first word starts with a lowercase, while every other word starts with an uppercase. I come again. The first word starts with a lowercase, while every other word starts with an uppercase. So let's see how this works. So since this is the first word, this one will be in lowercase. Every other word. So I can now remove the space now. So this is snake. This is camel casing. Sorry, this is camel casing. The first one starts with lowercase, every other one starts with uppercase. Now, in the world of JavaScript, the convention is camel casing. Like I said, it is convention. That doesn't mean you need to, that doesn't mean if you don't use it, your code will not run. It will still run. If you use snake casing, your code will run. If you use Pascal casing, your code will still run. But then that's the convention in the community, and it makes it easier for other JavaScript developers to work with you. Any question before we proceed? Okay, in absence of question, let's move on. So having a look at the casing system, let's now go back to what we started yesterday. We talked about variable, and I explained that variables are containers that store value, and you can make use of these values later if you need to. So let's go back there. If I have variable my container, note this is camel casing. Since I'm joining more than one word, since I'm using more than one word, then I'm writing it in camel casing. My container equals to 3. Remember I said for now we are going to be dealing with numbers alone. In the course of this 1 week session, we are going to deal with other data types, maybe tomorrow or the day after. We'll deal with other data types aside number, other values aside number. But for a start, let's stick to number. So variable my container equals to 3 like this. Then I can say, instead of just saying, let's say 3 plus, let's say 6 times 4. So this is what I'm keeping here. Then variable second container. Oops. So I can now say pick whatever is there and let's say subtract 7 from it. So this is easier. By writing my container, that means I'm taking all of this and I'm putting it back here. That is easier than rewriting this. It's easier than writing it like this. Open bracket 3 plus bracket plus 6 times 4. So this is, by writing the variable name, it's easier. It makes it possible for you to reuse the variable. That is one of the reasons why you need to use variables in your code, to reuse it, to use it over and over again. So now we want to go to a very interesting part of programming, or JavaScript functions. So So let's discuss what we've learned so far. We've learned variable declarations. We've learned naming convention. We've learned at least 2 output commands. Those output commands that the ones we learned yesterday. Okay, I think three of them. We used alerts. We used inner texts. We used value. Those are the ones we learned yesterday. Sorry, but before we move on, who can tell me when to use value and when to use inner text based on what we discussed yesterday?
Sir, I don't know if I am interchanging them, but I think we use value for editable, then container for uneditable.
Okay, thank you, sir. We use value, thank you, sir. We use value for editable. We use inner text, not container, inner text for uneditable containers. We use inner text, not value. So you just call on the id dot inner text. Please, you need to practice very well to know JavaScript. After class, go over the video, practice, try to do some things on your own. You have a book. The book allows you to download. If you check the end of the book, it has workbook session. It has a workbook session. Go to the workbook session. Go to the workbook session. Okay, so go to the workbook session and solve the questions there. Try it out, please. It's very essential to make you learn better. Okay, let's move on. So once you look at JavaScript functions and events, we're going to start with events. Events in JavaScript. Events in JavaScript. Now, events are occurrences. When you say an event occurs, when you mention event, then it means something actually happened. Events are occurrences. So what we use events for is this. Event allows you, or it makes it possible for you to know the activities of your users on your page. So, and also makes it possible for you to display some things or to do some things based on this user's activities. That is, if this happens, then I want JavaScript to do this for me. When the user performs this action, when the user does this, I want this to happen. When the user does this, I want that to happen. That is why you need event. For instance, let's say I have a button. So when the user clicks on this button, let me call it my button. So when the user clicks on this button, you may want to display something. That's an event. That's you are monitoring the user activities. So when the user does this, when the user clicks on this button, I want to do something. And maybe you aren't even interested in monitoring the user's click on this button. Maybe you want a situation whereby when the user moves the mouse into this button, then you want to do something else. So that is why we use events. When something happens, you want this to happen. When this happens, I want this to happen. So let's start. Event starts with on. You come here and say on. So look at some of the events that you can use in JavaScript. Note, I'm writing this inside HTML, but they're actually JavaScript events. So you say on, then the events you want to track. So in this case, I want to track the click event. So when the user clicks on this particular button, what do I want to do? So this on click means I want to track the user's click on this button. When the user clicks on this button, then I want to do something. So next is, what do I want to do? So let's say I want to alert 2. So the way it works, or the way it's going to work now is that when the user clicks on this button, it will alert 2. So let's go to the browser and see the results. We have these 2. If I click again, it comes up. So now I'm tracking my user's activity. I'm tracking what this user is doing. Or at least for now, I know that, oh, this user has clicked on this button and this is what I want you to do for me. Let's go on. Now, remember yesterday I said there are three ways you can use JavaScript. I mentioned two out of them. I told you you can mention the three, and those two I mentioned. Like I explained two out of the three. I said I will explain the third one as we proceed. So who can tell me the three ways you can use JavaScript according to what I explained to us yesterday? Okay. Adejare Adeyemi, kindly help us.
Okay, sir. We have inline
Okay.
uh, inline JavaScript.
Thank you.
We have external sheet. Then we have internal.
Good. Thank you. Perfect. We have
Okay.
the inline JavaScript. Thank you so much. We have the inline JavaScript, we have the internal JavaScript, and we have the external JavaScript. So I explained the internal and the external yesterday. So now I want to explain the internal. I said as we proceed, I want to explain the inline, the third one. I want to explain the inline. I promised that yesterday that as we proceed in this training, I will explain the third one, and that's where we are now. So this is inline JavaScript. You are using it within the line. If you notice this is directly writing it within HTML. I'm not within any script tag. I'm not doing this within this. This is a script tag. But I'm not doing that within the script tag. I'm using this alert right within HTML. Right within HTML. So this is inline JavaScript. Inline. So I can have, let's say, a p tag, and I can say, let's look at another event. Maybe mouse enter. That is, whenever my mouse enters into this p tag, when my mouse enter, then what do I want to do? Let's still use our alert. Let's say 70. So this is a p tag. So this is it. When a p tag is a block element container from the knowledge of HTML. From HTML, a p tag is a block element container, meaning whenever my mouse enters anything on this line, for you to understand what I'm saying, I will style the p tag a bit. Okay. So look at the whole p tag. This is the p tag. So when my mouse enters anywhere in this p tag, my mouse is about to enter. Can you see the alert? So immediately my mouse enters, the alert pops up. When it enters, it pops up. So now you know what the user is doing. You know, oh, this user's mouse has entered into this place, and this is what I want to do. Any questions so far? Okay, so I want to click on this button. You click, and you have this. Can we proceed? So this is what you are doing here is inline JavaScript. Although it's not a good practice that you use inline JavaScript. It's not a good practice. Internal, you can use internal, you can use external, but external is better. The advantage of external over internal is that external allows different HTML codes, different HTML files to use the same JavaScript codes. I come again. External allows different HTML files to use the same JavaScript codes. Let's move on. So next is this. Imagine this scenario. Imagine when I click on this button, I want to alert 2 times 4, let's say 2, anything like this. So when you click on this button, it's going to alert this 2 times 4 plus 2. Then let's get another button. I'll call this second button. When I click on this second button, I also want it to alert the same thing, 2 times 4 plus 2. And lastly, when my mouse enters into this p tag, I also want to alert 2 times 4 plus 2. Oops. Okay, so when my mouse enters into this place, it will alert 2 times 4 plus 2. When I click on this, it will alert 2 times 4 plus 2. When I click on this, it will alert 2 times 4 plus 2. So let's go to the browser and see the results there. So when I click on this, you have this here. Oops. Okay. When I click on this, you have this here. When my mouse enters this place, you have this. The 2 times 4 plus 2 is 10. So now, if you notice something, the two of them are doing the same thing. And there's something in programming, we call it dry, the dry principle. It stands for don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself. We're already doing that. We are repeating ourselves here. That's not a good programming practice. Since the two of them are doing the same thing, we can find a way of writing it in such a way that we are not going to repeat ourselves. Now, the reason this is important is this. Imagine this scenario. Presently, the two of them are displaying 10, but let's assume I woke up tomorrow and I decided to change this. Instead of saying plus 2, I want all of them. The three container, this button, and this P. Instead of doing 2 times 4 plus 2, I want it to be 2 times 4 plus 1. It means I need to change it here. I need to change it here. And I need to change it here. So I need to change it at 3 places, because if let's assume I forgot to change it at a place, this will still show us 10, while these two will show us 9. Now, because we only have about 20 lines of code on the screen, we may not see this as an issue, changing them one after the other. But imagine you have 100 lines of codes. You are looking for where you used it, searching for them one after the other will be a lot of work. You might even omit part of them. Because we only have 3 places we are using this, it's easy for us to just scan through it and change it. But let's assume we use it at a lot of places, let's say 50 places. Then we might forget to change it at 1 place. So remember this principle, dry. That now brings us to something we call functions in JavaScript. Functions. Functions are containers, but they are not like your variable. They are containers. But let's see what differentiates functions from variables. Functions are containers where you keep lines of code that you want to execute. I come again. Functions, they are containers where you keep lines of code that you want to execute. Let's see how to create a function. To create a function, let's switch back to our. Should we use internal? Okay, let me just do this. So let's use internal JavaScript. So to create a function, you write the function keyword. When JavaScript sees this, it knows that, oh, you're about creating a function. Then the name of your function, you can give it any name. Now, the name of your function must also obey all the conditions that bind variable declaration. So meaning that the name of your function must not be a keyword, or like it must not be a reserved word. It must not start with a number. It must not have special characters except dollars and underscore, and it must not have spaces. So your function name must obey all these rules. You can give it any name. I can call it my func. So function my func, then you put parentheses at the front. This parenthesis differentiates a function from a variable. Then lastly, you open a curly braces. So whatever codes you want to keep, remember I said a function is a container where you keep codes that you want to execute. So whatever codes you want to keep, you can now place them inside this curly braces. So for a start, I can say alert this. So I'll just cut this out of this place and place it inside this. So I'm keeping this now within this function. So I will move this from this place. I will move it from this place also. So I'm keeping this inside this function. And the way it works is that when you have a function like this and you want to call on the function, you want to run the codes. Remember, you are keeping codes there. So whenever you want to execute the codes within your function, all you need to do is to write the function name, the name of your function, and put parentheses at the front. I come again. Whenever you want to execute the codes within a function, all you need to do is to write your function name and put parentheses right at the front. And that's what we are going to do. So when I click on this button, I want it to do what we have inside this function. So what I will do here is I will write my function name, which is my func, and I put parentheses at the front like this. So what I'm saying is this: when a user clicks on this button, run all the codes inside this function. I want to do the same thing here, my func. So when a user clicks on this button, run all the codes inside this function. Same thing here, I can put my func. So when mouse enters, run all the codes inside this function. I think someone is raising up a hand. I'm coming. Okay, no bother. Let's move on. Let's check. Okay. So the way it works is you put the function name and parentheses right at the front. So what you are doing here is when you click, run the codes within this function. Same here. When you click, run the codes here. When your mouse enters here, run the codes here. So on get to the browser, when you click on this button, it will run the codes there. So we have this now. Same here. When you click on this, it will run the codes there. And when your mouse enters this, it will run the codes. Now, this is an advantage. If I wake up tomorrow and I want this to be maybe 50, all I need to do is just to change it here alone. I don't need to change it at 3 places or 10 places. So once I change it here, since all of them are calling on the same function, since they are calling on the same function, then it's going to apply to all of them. So let's go to the browser now. So see the results here. This is 58. So others will also be 58. 58. 58. So that is that's how you use a function. You can put a lot of things. You can put other codes there. Now there's something about function. If you don't call on a function name, nothing happens. So if I don't put the function name here, if I click on this button a million times, nothing happens. So I'll do that now. I'll remove the function name here. So that's the okay. Let's go to that button. This is the one. I'll remove out of this. So even if I click on this from today till tomorrow, nothing happens. So understand that the way a function works is that the code in a function does not execute automatically. No, it doesn't. Whenever you want to execute it, you need to write the function name and put a parenthesis right at the front of the function name. Any question before we move on? Okay, so let's play with this. Let's play with this. So I have this is a div. Let's get a button. So when I click on this button, immediately I click on this button, I want to put 5 inside this div. So when I click on this button, I want it to put 5 inside this div. So we come here and say, create a function put 5. Remember, let your function name, your variable name now, let it be as descriptive as possible. So we are creating a function called put 5, and when you click on this button, I want you to run the code inside it. So call on the ID of this container dot inner text equals 5, then attach it here. Put this like this. So put 5. So when you click on this button, it will run the code inside this function. So inside this function, it will see this line. So you are telling that go to this, pick this container, set the text inside it to 5. So that's why we have this 5. Now let's go over it again. What we want to do is this: when I click on this button, I want to put 5 inside this container. Now, on seeing this question, you might first do something like this: container dot, based on what we learned yesterday, inner text equals 5. You might first do it like this. So let's go to the browser and see the results. We have 5 here, but there's a problem. We don't just want it to put 5. We only want it to display 5 after we click on this button. I come again. It's not just about putting 5 inside the container, but after we click on this button. So that is where you now start thinking about it. Oh, an event occurred. An event needs to occur. That is, the user needs to first click on this button. So you now know that, oh, I need to attach an event to this button. Click. So when the user clicks on this button, what do I want to do? I can say container dot inner text equals 5 like this. So when you click, you have 5 there. But I explained that it's not good for you to be using inline JavaScript. When you click on this button, set the inner text to 5, but it's not good. I don't encourage inline JavaScript. So next is you now start thinking, oh, how do I solve it? Now, then you create a function, and you give it any name of your choice. You can call it anything, any name. So I can now say container dot inner text equals 5. Someone wants to try. So then next is you put the name here. So when the user clicks on this button, it will run the codes within this function and it will execute these codes. That's why we have this here. Now there are other events that you can look at. We saw some of them. Part of that is the double click events. Not just on click, we have the on DBL click. On DBL click. That's when you double click on this button. Do run the codes inside this place. So when you double click, it will do this for you. Now, these events, they are classified under 2 broad categories. We have the key events and the mouse events. Key events are those events that you perform using your keyboard. Mouse events are those events that you perform using your mouse. So on double click, you click with your mouse, it's under mouse event. On click, you click with your mouse, it's under mouse event. But let's check some of the key events together. So let's say we have an input. You can say on key up or on key down. This is one of the key events. That is, whenever you press a key, once you are inside this input and you press a key, then what do you want it to do? So you can say, when you press a key, you can say alert 6. So I will go to this input now. and I'll press any of. Now, if I click on my mouse, nothing happens because it's not a key. This is a key event. Now, you saw an alert there because I was trying to use shortcuts to, let me use my mouse to navigate it. So, because it is a key event, even if I press my mouse, nothing happens. But once I press any key, it's going to run this for me. So I'll come here, I will press my mouse, so nothing happens. But once I press any key, you have this alert. If I press another key, you have this alert. So once I press any key, it's going to do that for me. Then we have on key up. So for now, the on key up works in a similar way to the on key down. Once I press anything, it comes up. Once I press anything, it comes up. Once I press anything, it comes up. Now, who noticed the difference between the two? Do you notice any difference between the two, the on key up and on key down? Who noticed the difference? Any difference between the two? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, everyone.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So let's discuss a big difference between them, and that differentiates the on key up from the on key down. Notice something that with this on key up, notice that when I press any key, whatever I press will first be displayed before the alert comes up. Pay attention to that. Whatever I press will first be displayed inside this place before the alert comes up. And I will explain why it's behaving like that. There's H, then we have this 6 up. I'll press another key. You see I, then 6 comes up. I'll press another key, U, then 6 comes up. Look at on key down. It's the first alert before displaying. So I'll press a button now. We have this alert. As you can see, this is empty. When I close the alert now, whatever I press will now show. We have this. I'll press another key. Alert up. After closing the alert, then it comes on. Why is it behaving like this? The thing is, to understand this very well, okay, look at it. On key up will be called upon when you, let's say I press a key. Immediately I press the key, that key is down. At that point, it will do this on key down. But once I release that key and the key comes back up, then it will do the on key up. I come again. On key down, once you press a key, it's going to execute it. That is for on key down. Immediately you press a key, it will execute it. But immediately you release that key and the key comes back up, then it's going to do the on key up. If it's a bit confusing, I will do something for us. I will introduce it to another output command called console log. Console.log. Another output command called console log. Console log logs information to the browser's console. It sends information to the browser's console. It's a good place. The browser's console is a place that to debug your code. Debugging is when your application is not giving you the expected results. You try to check the errors there, you go to the codes and all of that. That's the meaning of debugging. So console, the browser's console is a place to debug your code. So sometimes you want to send some values to the console. You want to log some values to the console. Then you make use of console log. So instead of alerting this, I will send it to the console. So I'll come here and say console.log. That is, log this to the browser's console, console.log. So, on get to the browser, the question now is, where is the browser's console? To check your browser console, right click, inspect, click on inspect, then click on console. Here's the console. Right click, click on inspect, then click on console. The shortcut is on Windows, Control Shift, Control Shift I, Control Shift I. On Mac, Control Command C. Okay, so on Mac, Option Command C, Option plus Command plus C. On Windows, Control Shift I. That's the shortcut. Now, I'll go to the console now. Notice something. The console will make it obvious. Notice something. If I hold the key down, notice that I'm here to release the key. I'm still pressing the key, and it keeps counting up the numbers. Like it has displayed 6, 1, or like about 120 times, because my hand is still on the key. I'm here to release the key. So once I release the key now, it will stop counting. That's because we have the on key down. Once the key is down, keep running this course. Once the key is down, so whenever you press any key, it will do this. It will do this. So I'll use the on key up now, and you see the difference. Refresh. I will hold the key, just press it down. Now, it's not doing anything. That's because that key is here to come back up. Once I release my hand, then the key is up, and you have this in the console. I'll press another key. The key is still down, nothing happens. Once I release it, it comes back. It runs that function. So that's the difference between the on key up and on key down. We have other key events. We have on key press. We have on inputs. You can check them up. But this on key up, on key down, they are the ones you're going to be using often. And for mouse events, you're going to be using on click, at least most times. So let's limit, for now, we are going to limit our teachings to these 3. As we proceed, if need be, we can check other events. Now, enough of the theory. Let's go to the practical now. Enough of the theory. Let's do interesting things. So what I want to do is this. We have an input. Then we have a button. We have input, we have div, we have button. So I will type a value inside this input. Then click on this button. When I click on this button, I want you to get whatever is inside this input, multiply it by 2, and put the result inside this div. I come again. I'll type a value in this input. Then I click on this button. When I click on this button, get whatever is inside this input, multiply it by 2, and put the results here. So let's use what we've learned so far. Notice. Then move a button here. So I can simply multiply by 2. Notice function 2. So what we want to do is this. When the user comes here and types a number here, let's say 8, then the user clicks on this button. Then it will multiply that 8 by 2 and place the result in a div. So first is this. You need to monitor when the user clicks. That's the first thing. You need to monitor when the user clicks on that button. So you come here and put on click. So when the user clicks on this button, what do you want to do? You want to get the value of this input. You want to get whatever is there. So give this an ID. You can give it any ID of your choice. I call it IMP. So this input now has an ID called IMP. So on click of this button, get this ID for me, IMP. But we are not just interested in the ID, but instead what is inside that. Remember yesterday, editable and uneditable. So in this case, we make use of value. So multiply it by 2. So what happens now is when you click on this button, it will get whatever is inside this place and multiply it by 2. For a start, let's alert it. So I'll come here, press save. Okay. So first this, I'm click on this button, we have 16. Come here, let's say I have 24 here, and I click on this button, we have 48. Then Instead of alerting it, I want to put the result inside this div. Oops. So I'm going to call on the ID of the div, which is container dot inner text equals to this. So when you click on this button, it will get this multiplied by 2 and put it inside this list. The reason we are using inner text is because a div is uneditable container. So let's run it on the browser. When you click on this button, we have this. Come here, put another value. Click on this button, we have 50. Put another value. Maybe click on this button, we have 1.5 like this. But again, I don't advise that you make use of inline JavaScript. So instead, let's create a function. Function, give it a name. I'll just call this my func. So we put the function name here. Like this. So that solves it. Someone wants to join. So that solves it. So when I click on this button, it will run all the codes within this function. So what it's going to do is this. It will come to this input, use the ID to get whatever is inside its value, to multiply it by 2 and set it inside this div. Any question? Do you have any question? Now, assignments. We're going to be displaying it, presenting it tomorrow. I'll check it. Assignments. What I want you to do for me is this. Create 2 input. Let me comment out all of this. Comments. Okay. So create 2 inputs like this. And a button. So when the user clicks on this button, let's say multiply. So when the user clicks on this button, get whatever is inside this input and whatever is inside this input, multiply them together and place the result. Oh, sorry, I want to add this person. So this is a button. When the user clicks on this button, get whatever is inside this input. Together with whatever is inside this input, multiply the 2 together and place the result in this div. I come again. So when the user clicks on this button, get whatever is here, with whatever is there, get whatever is there also, multiply the 2 of them together and put the result inside this div. So when the user comes here, let's say the user types 7 here and then type 6 here, then clicks on this button, that is going to place 42 inside that div. Let's say user types maybe 3 here and let's say 5 here, then clicks on this button, it will put 15 in that container. Hope you understand the question. Any question on the question? Hello?
Hi, sir.
Do you have any question? Okay. Oluwase.
Yes. Is it the question is when the 2 boxes, like we type 5 at the other one and 2 at the second one, the answer will be outside. Is it outside?
It will be in
Yes,
a div.
is it outside or where?
Yes, it will be inside this div. It will be in a div.
Okay.
Okay. So the user will type a number here, then type another number here, then clicks on this button. When the user clicks on this button, get this, and multiply them together and place the results there.
Alright, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we continue from here tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to now look at data types. That is, we will now be able to look at other things aside numbers. We've only been looking at numbers all this while. So starting from tomorrow, we're going to be able to deal with other things aside numbers. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Okay,
Good night, sir.
dim your lights.
Mm-mm.
Dim your lights. Do you have a question?
Sir?
I see you raising up your hand.
Yes, sir. Is this class recorded?
Yes, it is.
Thanks, sir.
You're
Good
welcome.
night.
Good night. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.